The snow started falling around 6:30 that evening. Not the pretty kind you see on Christmas cards, but the heavy, wet kind that makes everything look gray and tired. Tommy Chen stood in his garage, watching the flakes stick to the old window as he wiped motor oil off his hands with a rag that had seen better days. Christmas Eve. The one night of the year when everyone else seemed to have somewhere to be. Someone waiting for them. Tommy had sent his helper home 2 hours early. The kid had 3 little ones at home, and Tommy remembered what that felt like. Well, not exactly. He'd never had kids of his own, but he remembered what it felt like to have someone waiting for you to come home. His wife Rachel used to decorate the apartment upstairs with those cheap plastic ornaments from the dollar store. She'd make hot chocolate that was too sweet and play the same Bing Crosby album until he'd pretend to complain about it. But he never really minded. Those were good years. 3 of them before the cancer came and took her away faster than either of them could process. That was 3 Christmases ago. Now the apartment upstairs stayed dark most nights. Tommy worked late, ate dinner from whatever the Chinese place down the street was still serving, and fell asleep watching old movies on his laptop. It wasn't much of a life, but it was his life. And at least he wasn't hurting anybody. He was reaching for the light switch when he heard it. The sound of an expensive engine struggling, sputtering. Then headlights cut through the darkness, bright and desperate. A car pulled into his lot, and even through the falling snow, Tommy could tell it was expensive. Real expensive. The kind of car that didn't usually end up in his neighborhood, let alone his garage. The door opened and a woman stepped out. Mid-30s maybe. Hard to tell. She wore a long wool coat that probably cost more than Tommy made in a month, and her shoes were completely wrong for the weather. Those thin heels that rich women wear. The kind that click on marble floors in fancy office buildings. She was already shivering. Tommy opened the garage door and stepped out into the cold. "Evening, ma'am. Looks like you're having some trouble." The woman looked up and he could see her face properly for the first time. She was pretty, in that polished way that came from expensive salons and never missing a skincare routine. But her eyes were red, and there were tear tracks on her cheeks that she'd tried to wipe away. She looked like someone who was barely holding it together. "Please," she said, and her voice cracked on that one word. "I know you're closed. I know it's Christmas Eve. But my car just died and I need to get to Children's Memorial Hospital. It's about 20 miles north of here. I have to get there." I promised I'd be there. Tommy walked over to the Mercedes. Steam was rising from under the hood, mixing with the snowflakes. "Pop the hood for me." She did, fumbling with the controls inside the car. Her hands were shaking. Tommy lifted the hood and immediately saw the problem. The radiator hose had blown, and coolant was leaking all over the engine block. Not the worst problem in the world, but not something you could fix with duct tape and hope either. "How bad is it?" the woman asked from behind him. She was hugging herself against the cold, and Tommy noticed she didn't have gloves. Who drives in this weather without gloves? "Blown radiator hose," he said, straightening up. "I've got the part. It'll take me about 40 minutes to fix it." Her face went pale. 40 minutes? "I don't have 40 minutes. I need to be there by 8. I promised Lily. She's only 7 years old and she's going into surgery tonight, and I promised her I'd be there when she woke up." "I promised." The words tumbled out fast like she couldn't stop them. Tommy watched her pull out her phone, stare at the screen, and make a frustrated sound. No signal. Of course there's no signal. Nothing's working tonight, nothing. She looked back at him and there was something raw in her eyes. Desperation, sure, but also guilt. The kind of guilt that eats at you from the inside. "I'll pay you triple, quadruple, whatever you need. Just please get me there faster." Something twisted in Tommy's chest. He'd seen this before. Rich people thinking money fixed everything. Thinking you could just throw cash at a problem and make it disappear. He'd watched his wife die in a county hospital because they didn't have insurance good enough for the experimental treatment. He'd held her hand while she apologized for being expensive. And here was this woman in her fancy coat thinking money could bend time itself. "Ma'am," he said, and his voice came out colder than he meant it to. "I'm already going as fast as I can. Money doesn't make my hands move faster. It doesn't make parts install themselves. 40 minutes is 40 minutes. She stepped back like he'd slapped her. For a second he thought she might get angry. Rich people usually got angry when you told them no. But instead her face crumpled. She covered her mouth with one hand and her shoulders started shaking. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I'm so sorry. That was awful of me. I'm scared. She asks for me when she's frightened and I'm never there. I'm always choosing wrong. Work meetings, business trips. I'm always late. I'm always letting her down. And tonight, of all nights when she needs me most, I'm standing in a parking lot in the snow because I was stupid enough to push the car too hard. I'm failing her. I'm failing my daughter. The words hung in the cold air between them. Tommy watched her cry, really cry, not caring anymore about her makeup or her image or whatever else people like her usually cared about. And suddenly he didn't see a rich woman in an expensive coat. He saw a mother, terrified, helpless, human, just like he'd been once upon a time. "Come inside," Tommy said quietly. "It's cold out here. Let me make a phone call." The woman followed Tommy into the garage, her heels clicking against the concrete floor. Inside it wasn't much warmer, but at least the snow wasn't falling on them. Tommy gestured to an old folding chair near his workbench. "Sit. I need to get my tools together." She sat down slowly, like her legs might give out. Up close, in the harsh fluorescent light of the garage, Tommy could see more details. Her coat was perfect, probably designer, but there was a coffee stain on the sleeve she'd tried to hide. Her nails were painted, but the polish was chipped. Her hair was pulled back neat, but strands were coming loose. She looked like someone who was trying very hard to hold everything together and losing the battle. "What's your name?" Tommy asked as he pulled out his toolbox. "Victoria," she said quietly. "Victoria Liu. I'm Tommy Chen." He grabbed the replacement hose from his parts shelf. "Tell me about your daughter. Lily, right?" Victoria's hands twisted in her lap. "She's 7. She loves art and piano and terrible jokes that don't make any sense. She wants to be a veterinarian when she grows up because she says animals don't judge you." Her voice caught. "She's been sick for almost a year now. This is her 3rd surgery. They're trying to fix a problem with her heart. The doctors say she's strong, that she'll be fine, but she's so small. She's so small and she's so scared." Tommy nodded, heading back out to the car. He could feel Victoria watching him as he set up his work light and got started on the repair. The cold bit at his fingers, but he'd worked in worse conditions. He'd once fixed a transmission in the middle of January with snow up to his knees. 40 minutes. He could do this in 40 minutes, maybe less. Victoria appeared beside the car, still hugging herself. "I should call the hospital. Let them know I'm delayed." "Use my phone," Tommy said, nodding toward the garage. "It's on the workbench. Black case. Signal's better inside." She hesitated. "I don't want to intrude." "You're not. Go. Call your daughter." Victoria went back inside, and Tommy heard her voice, muffled through the walls and the snow. He worked steadily, his hands moving through familiar motions. "Remove the old hose. Clean the connections. Check for other damage. Install the new hose. Tighten the clamps. Top off the coolant. Simple, straightforward." The kind of work that quieted his mind. But he kept thinking about what Victoria had said. About failing her daughter. About always choosing wrong. He'd heard that tone before. Rachel used to talk like that near the end, apologizing for being sick, for costing money, for taking up space in the world, like loving someone was supposed to come with a price tag. The thing was, Tommy understood Victoria's guilt more than he wanted to admit. He'd worked double shifts while Rachel was sick, trying to pay the medical bills, trying to keep them afloat. And every hour he spent under a car was an hour he wasn't holding her hand. Every emergency call-out was time stolen from her bedside. He told himself he was doing the right thing, providing for them, but the truth was simpler and uglier. Sometimes it was easier to fix a car than to watch someone you love slip away. Victoria came back out about 10 minutes later. She looked calmer, but her eyes were still wet. "I talked to her." The nurse held the phone up to her ear. "She's sedated, getting prepped for surgery. But she heard my voice," she said. "She said it's okay if I'm late. That she understands." Victoria's voice broke. "She's 7 years old and she's telling me it's okay. What kind of mother am I?" Tommy didn't look up from his work. "The kind who's trying her best in an impossible situation? That's what kind. You don't understand. I chose this, all of it. I built a career in finance, worked 80-hour weeks, climbed the ladder. I thought I was building a future for us. For her. But what's the point of a future if I'm not there for the present? I missed her school play last month because of a meeting. A meeting. I can't even remember what it was about now." Tommy tightened the last clamp and straightened up, wiping his hands. "You want to know what I think?" Victoria nodded. "I think you're being too hard on yourself. You're here now, aren't you? Fighting to get to her. That counts for something, does it? Because from where I'm standing, all I see is another failure. Another moment where I proved I can't handle being a single mother and a career woman at the same time. My ex-husband said I'd never manage it, said I'd have to choose. Maybe he was right. Tommy walked over to his workbench, grabbed a clean rag. Your ex-husband sounds like someone who didn't want to do his share of the work. That's on him, not you. Victoria let out a short, bitter laugh. He left when Lily was diagnosed. Said he couldn't handle it. The stress, the medical stuff, the uncertainty. He sends money every month, very reliable, very generous. But he hasn't visited her in the hospital once. Not once. The anger in Tommy's chest surprised him with its intensity. He didn't even know this woman. Didn't know her daughter, but the thought of a father walking away from a sick child made him want to punch something. Rachel had wanted kids so badly. They'd been talking about it, planning for it when she got sick. And here was a man who had a daughter and just left. Then you're already doing better than him, Tommy said. You're here. You're trying. That's what matters. Victoria looked at him for a long moment. Why are you being so nice to me? I came in here throwing money around like an entitled brat. I assumed you'd jump at the chance to overcharge me. Most people would. Tommy went back to the car, checking the coolant level one more time. Most people aren't as bad as you think they are. And you weren't being a brat. You were being scared. There's a difference. He closed the hood, the sound echoing in the quiet night. You're all set. Engine should run fine now. Take it easy on the highway. And get the whole cooling system checked out next week. But you'll make it to the hospital, no problem. Victoria pulled out her purse. What do I owe you? Nothing. Merry Christmas, her eyes widened. What? No, I can't accept that. You stayed late on Christmas Eve, you used your parts. Consider it a gift. For Lily. Victoria's face crumpled again, and this time she didn't try to hide it. Why? Why would you do this for a stranger? Tommy looked at her. This woman in her expensive coat with her broken car and her sick daughter and her guilt that sat on her shoulders like a weight she'd been carrying for too long. He thought about Rachel, about second chances he never got, about kindness that costs nothing but means everything. Because someone should, he said simply. Now go, be with your daughter. Victoria stood there in the garage, her purse still open, staring at Tommy like he'd just spoken a foreign language. Snow blew in through the open door, swirling around their feet. Outside, her Mercedes sat waiting, fixed and ready to go. But she didn't move. I can't just take this, she said finally. It's not right. You have a business to run, bills to pay. And I can afford it. I should pay you. Tommy was already cleaning up his tools, putting things back where they belonged. It was a habit Rachel had drilled into him. A place for everything and everything in its place, she used to say. He found it calming, the ritual of putting his workspace back in order. You can afford it, Tommy agreed. But that's not the point. The point is your daughter needs you, and you don't need one more thing to worry about tonight. So get in your car and drive carefully, the roads are getting bad. Victoria closed her purse slowly. I don't understand you. I came in here acting like money could solve everything, like you were just another service provider I could boss around. And you're helping me anyway, why? Tommy paused, a wrench still in his hand. That was a good question. Why was he helping her? Sure, it was the decent thing to do, but there was more to it than that. He could feel it in the way his chest had tightened when she talked about her daughter, in the anger he'd felt when she mentioned her ex-husband, in the recognition of that guilt in her voice. You want the honest answer? He asked. Victoria nodded. My wife died 3 years ago. Cancer. We spent her last 6 months going back and forth to hospitals, clinics, specialist appointments. I worked as much as I could to pay for it all, and she kept apologizing for it. For being expensive. For taking up my time. For existing. Tommy set the wrench down carefully. I told her she was being ridiculous. That, of course, I'd do whatever it took. But the truth is I wasn't always there. I was here, fixing cars, making money, telling myself I was helping. And I was, I guess. But I also wasn't. Not in the way that mattered. He turned to face Victoria fully. When she died, I had all these regrets. Things I should have said. Moments I should have been present for. And I can't get those back. Nobody can. But when you drove up tonight talking about your daughter, about promises you made, I don't know. Maybe I'm helping you because I couldn't help Rachel. Or maybe I'm helping you because someone should have helped me see what was important before it was too late. Victoria's eyes filled with tears again. I'm so sorry. About your wife. Don't be. She was happy mostly. We had good years. I just wish I'd understood sooner that being there matters more than providing. Kids especially, they don't care about money or careers or any of that stuff. They just want their parents to show up. That's what terrifies me, Victoria whispered. What if I can't figure out how to do both? What if I have to choose between my career and being the mother Lily deserves? I worked so hard to build something, to prove I could succeed. My parents immigrated here with nothing. My father worked in a restaurant kitchen for 30 years. My mother cleaned houses. They sacrificed everything so I could go to college, get a good job, make something of myself. How do I tell them I'm thinking about stepping back? About choosing less? Tommy wiped his hands on his rag. I'm just a mechanic. I don't know anything about finance careers or corporate ladders. But I know this. Your parents didn't sacrifice so you could be miserable. They sacrificed so you could have choices. Seems to me you're standing at one of those choice points right now. Victoria laughed softly, sadly. When did garage mechanics become therapists? When we started working on Christmas Eve instead of being with family. Tommy smiled, but it hurt a little. Listen, I'm not telling you what to do with your life. That's way above my pay grade. But tonight, right now, the choice is simple. Your daughter is in a hospital waiting for you. Everything else can wait. The career questions, the guilt, the what-ifs, all of it. Just go be her mom. Victoria nodded slowly. She walked toward her car, then stopped at the garage door. Tommy? Yeah? Thank you. Not just for the car, for seeing me. For not judging. For reminding me what matters. That's what neighbors do, Tommy said. Victoria smiled at that. We're not neighbors. I live 40 miles from here. In that new development with the big houses and the homeowners association. I got lost trying to take a shortcut. That's how I ended up in your neighborhood. Well, Tommy said, maybe that's how it was supposed to happen. Maybe you needed to get lost to find what you were looking for. That's very philosophical for a mechanic. I have my moments. Tommy watched as she got into her car, started the engine. It purred smoothly, no more sputtering or steam. Drive safe. Give Lily a hug for me when you see her. Victoria nodded, but before she could pull away, she rolled down her window. I meant what I said. About paying you. This doesn't feel right. Tommy thought about it. About pride and charity and the complicated dance people do around money and obligation. Tell you what, he said. When your daughter is better, when she's out of the hospital and strong again, bring her by. Let me meet the little girl whose mom fought through a snowstorm to be with her. That's payment enough. Victoria's face transformed. The worry lines smoothed out, and for just a moment she looked younger, hopeful. Really? Really? I'd like that. Okay, it's a deal. She shifted the car into drive, then paused again. Tommy, Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas, Victoria. He watched her taillights disappear into the snowy darkness, heading north toward the hospital and her daughter, and a surgery that would hopefully finally make things better. The garage felt very quiet after she left. Very empty. Tommy stood there for a long moment watching the snow fall. Something had shifted inside him, though he couldn't quite name it. For 3 years he'd been going through the motions. Working, eating, sleeping, repeating. Not really living, just existing. Avoiding the apartment upstairs with all its memories. Avoiding connections that might hurt if he lost them again. But tonight, for 40 minutes, he'd felt something other than that dull ache of loss. He'd felt useful, needed, connected to another human being's story in a way that mattered. Maybe Rachel had been trying to teach him that all along. That kindness doesn't cost anything, but it gives back everything. Tommy locked up the garage and climbed the stairs to his apartment. His fingers were numb from working in the cold, and his back ached in that familiar way that told him he wasn't getting any younger. 43 wasn't old, but years of working under cars had a way of aging a body faster. The apartment was dark and cold. He'd turned the heat down to save money, another habit from the lean years. He flicked on the light and stood in the doorway, looking at the space that had once felt like home. The furniture was the same. The pictures on the wall were the same. Rachel smiled at him from a dozen different frames, frozen in moments of happiness he could remember if he tried hard enough. But something was different tonight. The usual heaviness that settled on him when he walked through that door felt lighter somehow. Less suffocating. Tommy made himself a sandwich not because he was particularly hungry, but because that's what you were supposed to do. Eat, sleep, keep going. He turned on the small TV, found some old Christmas movie he'd seen 1,000 times. Jimmy Stewart Saving the Day in Bedford Falls. It was the kind of movie Rachel loved, The kind she'd insist they watch every year while eating popcorn and drinking that too-sweet hot chocolate. He was halfway through the sandwich when his phone rang. Tommy almost didn't answer. It was nearly 9 o'clock on Christmas Eve. Nobody called him anymore, except for the occasional customer with an emergency, and he'd already handled his emergency for the night. But something made him pick it up. Unknown number. Hello? Tommy, it's Victoria. Victoria Lou, from earlier. Tommy sat up straighter. Everything okay? Did the car break down again? No, the car's fine. I'm at the hospital now. I made it with 15 minutes to spare. They're just taking Lily into surgery now. Her voice sounded thick, emotional. I wanted to call and thank you again. I got to see her before they took her back. She was scared, but she was brave. And I was here. I got to hold her hand and tell her I love her and that I'd be right there when she woke up. Tommy felt something warm spread through his chest. That's good. That's really good, Victoria. It is. And it's because of you. If you hadn't helped me, she trailed off. Anyway, I also wanted to call because I realized I didn't even ask about the repair cost. And I know you said no charge, but Tommy, that's not fair to you. Please, let me pay you what I owe. Tommy looked around his apartment, at the cheap furniture and the quiet darkness and the life he'd built out of routine and avoidance. I told you. When your daughter is better, bring her by. That's all I want. That feels like such an uneven trade. Maybe, but it's the one I'm offering. There was a pause on the line. Tommy could hear the sounds of the hospital in the background. Beeping machines, distant voices, the particular kind of quiet that only existed in places where people were fighting to stay alive. Okay, Victoria said finally, but I'm also going to do something else and you can't argue with me about it because I've already made up my mind. What's that? I'm going to leave you a review online, 5 stars, and I'm going to tell everyone I know about the mechanic who saved Christmas Eve. You're going to get so much business you'll have to hire more help. Tommy laughed. Actually laughed. It felt strange, unfamiliar, like a muscle he'd forgotten how to use. You don't have to do that. I know I don't have to, I want to. Good people deserve good things, Tommy. Let me do this one small thing. They talked for a few more minutes. Victoria told him about Lily's doctors, about the surgery they were performing, about how long the recovery might take. Tommy found himself genuinely interested, genuinely caring about this little girl he'd never met. It was strange how quickly people could become important to you, how one conversation could make someone else's life matter. After he hung up, Tommy sat in the silence of his apartment. But this time the silence felt different, less like loneliness and more like peace. He got up, walked to the closet where he'd shoved all of Rachel's Christmas decorations 3 years ago. Boxes and boxes of cheap plastic ornaments, tangled lights, a small artificial tree that had seen better days. He pulled out the tree first. It was barely 4 feet tall, half the branches bent at odd angles. Rachel had bought it from a thrift store their first Christmas together, before they had any money for a real tree. She loved it anyway, said it had character. Tommy set it up in the corner by the window. Then he started untangling the lights, which was easier said than done. How did lights even get this tangled just sitting in a box? He worked patiently, methodically, the same way he worked on engines. Everything had a solution if you took your time and didn't force it. By 10 o'clock, the tree was up and lit. It looked ridiculous, honestly. Small and crooked and clearly cheap. But it was something. It was a start. Tommy was digging through the ornament boxes when he heard footsteps on the stairs outside. Heavy footsteps, more than one person. Then a knock on his door. He opened it to find Victoria standing there, snowflakes still caught in her hair. And beside her, a small girl in a hospital gown under a heavy coat, pale but smiling, with bright eyes that reminded him of Rachel's. Wait, that couldn't be right. Tommy blinked, confused. Victoria? What are you? I thought Lily was in surgery. Victoria's eyes were red but shining. She was. They did a preliminary exam and realized the problem wasn't as bad as they thought. They can treat it with medication instead. No surgery needed. She gets to go home. She gets to have Christmas. The little girl stepped forward, suddenly shy. In her hands was a small wrapped box and an envelope. Are you Tommy? Mommy said you fixed our car and wouldn't let her pay you. She said you're a hero. Tommy crouched down to the girl's level. His knees protested, but he ignored them. I'm not a hero, sweetheart. I'm just a mechanic. Your mom did all the hard work getting to the hospital and taking care of you. Mommy says heroes don't think they're heroes. That's what makes them heroes. The girl held out the envelope and box. We got you presents. To say thank you, Tommy took them with shaking hands. The envelope was thick, probably money. The box was light, wrapped in paper covered with snowmen. You didn't have to do this. Yes, we did, Victoria said softly. Open the box first. Tommy unwrapped it carefully. Inside was a small ornament, nothing fancy. A silver angel holding a wrench, clearly from some discount store. But attached to it was a card, and on the card, in a child's careful handwriting, were the words, "Thank you for helping Mommy find me. You're my Christmas angel. Love, Lily." Something broke open in Tommy's chest, something that had been frozen and locked away for 3 long years. He looked at the ornament, then at the little girl, then at Victoria, and suddenly he couldn't see clearly, because his eyes were blurring with tears he hadn't known he'd needed to cry. Tommy stood there in his doorway, holding a cheap ornament and trying not to cry in front of a 7-year-old girl. He failed spectacularly. The tears came anyway, hot and unexpected, and he had to wipe them away with the back of his hand. "I'm sorry," he managed to say. "I'm not usually. I don't normally." Victoria's hand touched his shoulder gently. "It's okay, really, we understand." Lily stepped closer, concerned. "Are you sad? Did I make you sad?" Tommy crouched down again, looking at this small person who'd been through so much and was worried about his feelings. "No, sweetheart. These are happy tears. The best kind. Thank you for this gift. It's perfect." Lily's face brightened. "Mommy said you live alone and probably don't have any decorations. So we stopped at the store that was still open, and I picked this one special because you fix cars and angels help people, so it's both things together. Do you like it?" "I love it," Tommy said, and meant it with his whole heart. "I'm going to put it on my tree right now. Want to see?" He invited them in, suddenly embarrassed by his small, shabby apartment. Victoria probably lived in one of those new houses with the vaulted ceilings and granite countertops. This place with its worn furniture and faded carpet must look like nothing to her. But Lily gasped when she saw the little tree in the corner. "You have the same tree as us. Mommy got ours from a special shop where they sell things people don't want anymore. She said it needed a home." Tommy laughed, the sound surprising him. "Yeah, well, this one needed a home too. Your mom has good taste," Victoria smiled. "Lily picks out all our decorations. I work a lot, so Christmas is her department. She takes it very seriously." Lily was already examining the tree, pointing out which branches needed more ornaments. Tommy handed her the angel, and she placed it carefully on the front where everyone could see it. It looked perfect there, that little silver angel with her wrench catching the colored lights. "There," Lily announced. "Now your tree is official. You can't have Christmas without at least one special ornament." Tommy nodded seriously. "You're absolutely right. Thank you for making my tree official." Victoria cleared her throat. "Tommy, there's also the envelope. Please open it." Tommy had almost forgotten about it. He opened it carefully, expecting cash. And there was cash, quite a bit of it. More than the repair would have cost even if he'd charged her triple. But there was also a note handwritten on nice paper. He read it silently. "Tommy, I know you said no payment, but please accept this. Not as payment for the repair, but as a thank you for something much more important. You reminded me what matters. You helped me see that showing up for my daughter is worth more than any meeting, any deal, any promotion. I've already sent emails to my office. I'm taking a leave of absence. Maybe permanent, maybe temporary. I don't know yet. But I'm going to figure out how to be the mother Lily deserves. The mother I want to be. You gave me back hope tonight. You gave me back myself. That's worth more than any amount of money, but it's all I know how to give. Please don't refuse this. You have a gift, Tommy. Not just for fixing cars, but for seeing people. For being kind when kindness is hard. The world needs more people like you. With gratitude and friendship, Victoria." Tommy folded the note carefully, his hands shaking. He looked up at Victoria, who was watching him with those eyes that had been so desperate a few hours ago, and were now clear and calm and sure. "You're taking time off work?" he asked. Victoria nodded. "I am. I called my parents from the hospital. Told them everything. My mom cried and said she was proud of me. My dad said family always comes first. I don't know why I thought they'd be disappointed. They've been telling me for years to slow down." "That's good," Tommy said. "That's really good, Victoria. Lily's lucky to have you. I'm lucky to have her. And I'm lucky I broke down outside your garage tonight instead of somewhere else." They stood in silence for a moment, watching Lily rearrange ornaments on the tree to her satisfaction. She hummed while she worked, some song Tommy didn't recognize. The apartment felt different with people in it, warmer, more alive. "Can I ask you something?" Victoria said quietly. "Your wife, what was she like?" Tommy thought about it. About how to summarize a person, a life, a love. She was kind. That was the main thing about Rachel. She was kind to everyone. Saw the best in people. She used to leave extra big tips for waiters and always stopped to pet every dog on the street. She made terrible jokes and laughed at her own punchlines. She loved Christmas. Would have loved this, actually. Meeting you two, seeing that ornament on the tree. She always said kindness circles back around. She sounds wonderful. She was. I didn't appreciate it enough when she was here. Too busy working, trying to provide. I thought that was what mattered. But she just wanted me there. Just wanted me to see her, spend time with her. Especially at the end, Victoria touched his arm gently. But you were doing your best. That's all any of us can do. Maybe. But maybe our best needs to include actually being present. Not just physically there, but really there. Really seeing people. That's what you're doing now. Taking time off to be with Lily, that's the right choice. Because of you. You showed me that. Tommy shook his head. No, you already knew it. You just needed permission to believe it was okay. But Victoria, I need to tell you something. I can't accept this money. It's too much. Way too much, Victoria crossed her arms. Tommy Chen. I drove away from your garage 3 hours ago feeling like the luckiest person in the world because a stranger showed me kindness when I needed it most. You let me experience grace. Real grace with no strings attached. That changed something in me. So now it's my turn. You're going to take this money, and you're going to use it for something good. Maybe fix up your garage. Maybe take a vacation. Maybe just put it in the bank for a rainy day. I don't care. But you're taking it, and that's final. Tommy looked at the envelope. Then at Victoria's determined face, then at Lily, who was now sitting on his floor looking through his box of ornaments like she'd found buried treasure. Okay, he said finally, but only if you promise me something. What? Come back. Not because you owe me anything, but because I'd like to know how Lily's doing, how you're both doing. Maybe grab coffee sometime. Be friends. Real friends. Victoria's eyes filled up again. You want to be friends with us? Why not? You're interesting people. And Lily's already improved my Christmas tree by about 1,000%. Lily looked up. Can we, Mommy? Can we come back and visit Tommy? I want to see if he gets more ornaments, Victoria smiled. Yes, baby. We can visit Tommy. If he's sure he wants 2 girls showing up and bothering him. I'm sure, Tommy said, and he was. More sure than he'd been about anything in 3 years. They stayed for another hour. Lily told Tommy about her school and her friends and her favorite books. Victoria told him about her parents' restaurant and growing up between 2 cultures. Tommy found himself talking too. About Rachel, about learning to be a mechanic. About the neighborhood and how it had changed over the years. It was easy. Talking to them. Natural. Like they'd known each other longer than one evening. When they finally left, with promises to call tomorrow to check in, Tommy stood at his window and watched their car pull away. The snow had stopped falling, and the streets were quiet under their white blanket. Christmas Eve was nearly over. Tommy looked at his little tree with its one special ornament. The angel caught the light, her wrench held high like a banner. He thought about the last 3 years. About grief and loneliness and going through the motions of living without really feeling alive. About how easy it was to close yourself off, to stop letting people in because letting people in meant risking loss. But tonight, he'd let 2 people in, and instead of feeling scary or painful, it felt right. It felt like waking up after a long sleep. His phone buzzed. A text from Victoria. Home safe. Lily's already asleep clutching her favorite stuffed animal. Thank you again for everything. You changed our lives tonight, Tommy. Merry Christmas to our angel mechanic. Tommy smiled and typed back, Merry Christmas to you both. Sleep well. He set his phone down and walked to his small kitchen. Found the hot chocolate mix Rachel used to buy. Still in the cupboard after all this time. Made himself a cup extra sweet just the way she liked it. Sat by the window with his ridiculous little tree and his one perfect ornament. And let himself feel something he hadn't felt in years. Hope. Not the kind of hope that erases loss or pretends pain never happened. But the kind of hope that says maybe there's more ahead. Maybe closing one chapter doesn't mean the story's over. Maybe kindness really does circle back around in ways you never expect. bringing with it the possibility of connection and healing and new beginnings. Tommy raised his mug toward the tree, toward the angel, toward Rachel wherever she was. "You were right," he whispered. "About everything. Kindness doesn't cost anything, but it gives back everything." Outside, somewhere in the city, a little girl was sleeping peacefully, her mother watching over her. And in a small apartment above a garage, a man who'd been alone for too long was learning how to hope again. That's what Christmas is really about, Tommy thought. Not the presents or the decorations or the big gestures. It's about the small moments of connection that remind us we're not alone, that we matter to each other. That one act of kindness can ripple outward, changing 2 lives or 3 or maybe more than we'll ever know. He finished his hot chocolate and went to bed, leaving the tree lights on. His apartment felt less empty now, less like a place he was hiding and more like a place he was living. Tomorrow he'd wake up on Christmas morning for the first time in 3 years and actually feel like celebrating. He'd text Victoria and Lily. Maybe he'd go to the diner down the street that stayed open on holidays. Maybe he'd start decorating the rest of the tree. Maybe he'd start living again. Because that's what happens when kindness circles back around. It doesn't just change one moment. It changes everything that comes after. 1 broken car, 1 snowy night, 2 lives forever changed, and 1 angel ornament with a wrench hanging on a tree, catching the light, reminding a lonely mechanic that the best gifts can't be bought or sold. They can only be given freely from one heart to another, in moments when we choose connection over isolation, hope over despair, love over fear. That's the real magic of Christmas. Not miracles from above, but small acts of grace between human beings who choose, despite everything, to see each other, to help each other, to remind each other that we're all in this together, and sometimes that's enough. Sometimes that's everything. 6 months later, Tommy was under the hood of a pickup truck when he heard the familiar sound of that Mercedes pulling into his lot. He smiled before he even looked up. He'd know that engine anywhere now, Tommy. A small voice called out, and suddenly there was Lily, running toward him with her arms wide open. She looked completely different from that pale, scared little girl in a hospital gown. Her cheeks were pink and healthy. Her eyes were bright. She was wearing a yellow dress covered in sunflowers. Tommy wiped his hands quickly and crouched down just in time to catch her hug. "Hey there, kiddo. Look at you. You're glowing." "The doctor said I'm all better," Lily announced proudly. "No more hospitals. No more medicine. Just checkups now." Victoria walked up behind her daughter, and Tommy noticed she looked different too. More relaxed. She was wearing jeans and a simple t-shirt, her hair loose around her shoulders. No fancy coat, no stressed expression, just a woman enjoying a summer day with her daughter. "We brought lunch," Victoria said, holding up a bag. "Thought maybe you'd want to take a break and eat with us?" Tommy looked at the pickup truck, then at his watch, then at the 2 of them standing in his garage looking hopeful. "You know what? I'd love that." They sat on the old wooden bench outside the garage, the same bench where Tommy used to eat lunch alone every day. Now it was crowded with the 3 of them, passing around sandwiches and fruit and cookies that Lily had helped bake. The little girl chattered away about her art class and the piano recital she had coming up and the new friend she'd made at the park. Tommy listened, really listened, asking questions and laughing at her stories. Victoria watched them both with this soft expression that made Tommy's chest feel warm. "So," Tommy said to Victoria during a moment when Lily was distracted by a butterfly, "how's the new life treating you?" Victoria smiled. "It's good. Really good. I'm doing consulting work from home now, just a few hours a day. Enough to keep my brain engaged, but not so much that I'm missing everything. My parents watch Lily sometimes when I have calls. We have dinner together most nights. It's simple, but it's right." "I'm glad," Tommy said, and meant it. "What about you?" "The garage looks busy." Victoria nodded toward the 2 cars waiting in the lot. "Yeah, funny thing about that review you left. People actually read those. I've had to hire 2 part-time guys just to keep up." "Been turning away work?" Tommy shook his head, still amazed. "Never thought I'd say that. See? Good things happen to good people. Sometimes," Tommy agreed, "when they get lucky enough to meet the right person at the right time." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching Lily chase butterflies around the parking lot. The summer sun was warm on Tommy's face, and for the first time in years, he felt something he'd almost forgotten. Contentment. Not the absence of pain, but the presence of something good enough to balance it out. Tommy? Lily came running back. Can you come to my piano recital next month, please? I'm playing a Christmas song even though it's summer because the teacher said I could pick anything, and Christmas songs are my favorite. Tommy looked at Victoria, who nodded encouragingly. I'd be honored, he said. Just tell me when and where. Lily threw her arms around him again, and Tommy closed his eyes, holding this moment carefully in his mind. A little girl who'd been sick was now healthy and happy. A mother who'd been drowning had found her balance, and a lonely mechanic had discovered that his life wasn't over, just waiting for the next chapter. As they packed up to leave, Victoria touched Tommy's arm. You know, you never did tell me what you used that money for. Tommy smiled. New tools for the garage, a donation to the children's hospital, and I'm taking a vacation next month. First one in 5 years, going to see the Grand Canyon. Rachel always wanted to go there. Victoria's eyes got misty. That's perfect, Tommy, that's exactly perfect. After they drove away, Tommy stood in his garage looking at the cars waiting to be fixed, at the tools hanging neatly on the wall, at the photograph of Rachel he'd brought down from the apartment. She was smiling in it, that bright smile that had first made him fall in love. I'm doing okay, he told her picture quietly. I think you'd be proud of me. I'm finally learning what you tried to teach me. About kindness, about connection, about showing up for people. The summer breeze blew through the garage, warm and gentle, almost like an answer. Tommy got back to work, but everything felt different now. Lighter. The work wasn't just work anymore. It was part of a life he was actually living, connected to people who mattered, filled with moments that counted. One snowy night. One simple choice to help a stranger, and everything had changed. That's how it works, Tommy thought. Kindness isn't just about the moment you give it. It's about everything that comes after. The friendships that grow, the lives that intersect, the lonely hearts that learn to open again. One act of grace rippling outward forever. That's the real gift. Not what we give or receive, but who we become when we choose to see each other, to help each other, to remind each other that none of us are alone unless we choose to be. And Tommy Chen, mechanic and Christmas angel, had finally learned that lesson. He was ready now. Ready to live. Ready to love. Ready for whatever came next, because kindness had circled back around, and it had brought him home.